If you look at the statistics, over 50% of women that travel by themselves, that's a #1 concern they have, and that's safety. And I think that, I believe, because I've experienced it, looking in a hotel, let's face it, a hotel is your home away from home. And if you're not comfortable and you're not going to get a good night's sleep, you're not going to have a good day at the office the next day, or you're not going to have a good day if you're leisure traveling. You're paying a lot of money for that room. You might as well get what you want. And most of the time, we don't ask for what we want. We will take that hotel room that may be on the first floor, and I'm an advocate of never having a hotel room on the first floor because it's just too easy for people to walk in and walk out. There are not people that are monitoring it all the time, and it's the same thing that if the hotel room door opens out into the parking lot. That doesn't help you out at all either. You want to have somebody that's kind of looking out for yourself. And you don't want to be on an extremely high floor because if, God forbid, you have to come out in the middle of the night, you don't want to have to be walking down by yourself or with a group of kids, your whole family, in the dark in the stairwell. So you want to have easy access in and out. And the other thing that's very important for women to do is to trust your instincts. Most of the time we don't do that. And we will just take what is given to us and we'll just put up with it.
We're afraid of the B word, that if I complain too much, I'm going to be a bitch.
Exactly, very much so. And it's a fine line. And being assertive is okay, being aggressive is not. And men can get away with it, and I don't think women can.
As you said, always the fine line. All right, what other issues about that we may not be getting the most from our hotel stay?
The other issue I would say is that you want to make sure where your room is located. We talked about the first floor, we talked about a high floor. I would also suggest not staying near a health club or a restaurant or the bar.
But they're convenient.
They are convenient, however, there's a lot of traffic. And if you're continuously awakened at 2 in the morning because of traffic, you're not going to be a very happy person at all.
That's true. A good night's sleep determines how you're going to be the next day.
Isn't that the truth?
All right. Speaking of a good night's sleep, many of us do things like some hotels will offer the option of you'll pre-book your breakfast and you'll put it on a little hang tag. Now that keys into something that is a mistake, you say, ignoring simple security precautions in a hotel. How can I, by filling out a hang tag and saying what I want for breakfast, how can that be a security mistake in a hotel?
If you have access to, if somebody has access to an outside stairwell, you could have an intruder come in, and then that's a security risk for you. By signing your name, or not signing your name, putting your initials to everything, including the overnight room service bill, or your restaurant bill, or even the health club, just gives you a layer of protection against you and everybody else. And talking about the tag that you put outside your door, don't put that you're single. Put 2.
But they ask you, you know, how many people are staying in your room. I always think, well, I don't want to put down 2 because I don't want them to spend the money on the extra setup.
But the extra setup's only going to go back downstairs.
Right. And
if they spend extra, it's more time than money on the setup, and it's also going to give you a level of comfort. And so I think everybody's life is worth a little added comfort at this point in time.
Now, what about when I check into the hotel? There's always the option of a bellman walking me up to my room, opening the door. Sometimes I think, oh, I'm being cheap. I don't want to tip him. I'll do it myself. Is it good to have someone go with you upstairs to your room as a woman?
The $64,000 question is to use the bellman or not. And we have this discussion a lot, and it's a personal opinion. I like to use a bellman because I want to make sure that there's nobody in the room that I'm walking into. The person could be in the room for 2 reasons. One, it could be somebody that wants to do you harm, or there have been mistakes where I walked into a room and I just got the wrong key. And that's very embarrassing for that individual as well as for me. So having a bellman, again, gives you a level of protection and somebody between you and any harm that would come to you. And that's the biggest reason to use a bellman.
I once met a woman who is a fairly well-known children's author coming to Syracuse. We had mutual friends, and she told me a horrifying story of, she was a larger, older woman, and she had been shopping at a hotel, and she had a number of packages. She put them all down, took her key out, and opened the door. And then somebody came from behind her, shoved her into the room, assaulted her, and basically she was nearly left for dead. She was in terrible, terrible shape. Now, what about that? Because are women really vulnerable at the moment where they're about to enter their room? What do we do to avoid that?
Be very aware of your surroundings. And that's critical the whole time you're traveling, especially in the airports as well as in a hotel or when you're out on the street by yourself. And so you have to be aware of your surroundings. If you are uncomfortable, even getting into an elevator, and you feel that, again, your senses are so critical. Don't ignore any of those. If you feel uncomfortable walking into an elevator, just make an excuse, I forgot something, turn around and walk out. I know a number of women that will not get into an elevator by themselves with a man. And if you feel, again, one of the nice things about having a bellman and having somebody with you, for this author would have had a level of protection against she and the intruder.
Absolutely right. Her story always stays with me. All right, we're just going to bounce through the last two most common travel mistakes very quickly. Packing unwisely, which I think we covered pretty well, and leaving behind humor and patience. Why should I bring humor and patience with me on a flight or on any trip?
But you know, let's face it, you think everything's going to go right, and it's not. And how you attack a problem, you're trying to get from A to B, the flight attendant or the gate agent's trying to get you from A to B, and sometimes that just may not work. And if you show a little humor and a little patience and actually a little compassion, these people hold a lot of power on how they're going to get you from point A to point B. And if you empathize with them a little bit, they will help you out in ways it's unimaginable. But if you turn around and use we talked about being a bitch on the road, they're just going to set up a wall and you're not going to get anywhere. And if you find that you're not getting the level of service you want or the questions you want answered from the person you're talking to, raise it up a level. Talk to the manager, whether it be at the hotel, whether it be even at the gate or at the front counter. There are managers, there are supervisors on staff, on the ground that will be able to help you.
All right, let's say I walk out of this room and I hear that I have to immediately get on a plane, a red-eye to New York, because I have some sort of business engagement, and I have very little time. And we only actually have about a minute left in this discussion. But what is it that would be essential for me to take, even if it's just an overnight, something that I, as a woman, what is it that I need to focus on if I have to travel in a very short amount of time?
If you have to travel in a very short amount of time and you've got have somebody help you get your travel arrangements done, because you're not going to have time to be able to go and do that. Secondly, you're going to want to pack. You're not going to need to pack a big bag, because if you have the outfit on, all you're going to need is a different scarf, or you're going to need a different blouse, and you're good to go. And you're just going to need your essentials. Make sure especially that you have your any medicine that you've got. And keep your valuables to a minimum, because it's a quick flight in and out, it's a quick trip, and you don't want to have to be laid down with a lot of things.
And of course, the essentials, we all have to travel with photo ID now.
Yes, we do.
That's really critical. We have to be prepared that we're going to have to take off our shoes. Hopefully we won't go beyond that we'll pass through security okay. But the wands, they still pretty much use that? Or is there you ever been pulled aside and been checked over?
I have. And I've been flagged, and I typically get flagged when you make a reservation at the last minute. So be prepared for that. And the other thing I would suggest is put what's called ICE in your speed dial, which is in case of emergency. You put your spouse's, somebody close to you's number and name so they know how to get you.
Very good information. There is more information if you'd like to find out more about the Woman Road Warrior. Business travel advice for women. There is a website, womenroadwarrior.com. Kathleen Amici, thank you so much for coming here, and have a good flight back to Chicago.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
That does it for this episode of Women's Voices. Thanks for joining us this evening to hear the opinions and perspectives that Women's Voices bring to the table. And never hesitate to make your own voice heard. For Women's Voices, I'm Linda Lowen. Good night.